Hey there, all you cool cats and kittens. It is Halloween day as I am recording this. But you know what? The Halloween fun does not end on Halloween. I would say it's the kickoff to the holiday fun. So happy Halloween. Happy Samhain. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, please correct me. Happy All Hallows Eve. Happy All Souls Day. Happy Day of the Dead. Happy whatever you celebrate. Happy pumpkin day if you love pumpkin, if you love pumpkin spice. Halloween is definitely the kickoff of holiday fun in our family, so I hope you did some trick-or-treating, and I hope you are getting ready to stuff yourself silly in the months to come. Whatever you celebrate, be with your family or be by yourself. If you prefer that, be with your found family or your friends or your significant other. I hope you have a happy kickoff to the holiday season, no matter what you are celebrating, or if you celebrate nothing at all. I wish you good vibes and good times. This is what I'm wishing you. So today, in honor of Halloween, which is what I'm recording, this is the day I'm recording, we are going to review a pretty spooky episode of The X-Files, and that is the season 1 episode, Fire. My significant other and I watched this episode last night while we were getting tipsy on harvest wine and our daughter's Halloween cupcakes. So I had to rewatch the episode this morning because in my inebriated state, I had missed some points. So just bear with me. Also, I got my voice back. My laryngitis is gone, bitches. So I'm very happy about that. A little background on the episode Fire, personally. When I was a kid, there was this book in the library when I was about 13 years old, and it was about the season 1 X-Files episodes and the quote, big quotation marks, real life stories that inspired them. And they talked about spontaneous human combustion and what have you, all those shenanigans, which are discussed in the episode Fire. And there was this really cool shot of the antagonist in this episode, Cecil, with his arm on fire. If you are a fan of the X-Files, or even if you're casually acquainted with the series, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's a super cool, iconic shot, and I loved it so much. I paid, 30 cents, which was a big sum to have this printed off on the library copy back in 1998, and the library copier, and I hung it up in my room. I loved it so much. Yeah, this episode is written by a certain man named Chris Carter. You might have heard of him, and this is the second episode I've covered written by him. The other one was The Jersey Devil. Like The Jersey Devil, it is unintentionally hilarious. It has moments that just crack me up every time, but I don't think they were intentional. I think it would be, I am 99.9% sure they were not intentional. That's the way it goes with Chris Carter. He is a poor writer. I don't think that's an opinion. I think that's a fact, especially when he's in the arena with other writers like Vince Gilligan or Frank Spotness or Darren Morgan. Like, he's just flailing. But there are some things this episode gets right, and if I'm nothing, I am fair. I will give credit where credit's due. But there are some things in this episode that makes it very problematic, especially in its representation of its female characters, Scully included. And we're going to discuss that at length. So let's dive right into Fire. In honor of this episode, I am drinking H2O, my lapis lazuli cup, my lapis lazuli water glass. Did you know that some fires can burn so hot that they separate the hydrogen and oxygen in water, and it just adds fuel to the fire? I learned that from rewatching this episode. So Okay, Chris Carter, I've got your scoreboard up. One thing, man. One thing. You get that, buddy. You get a couple more. There are some things in this episode I really, really like, but there are some very problematic elements in this episode, and we'll talk about that. So, Fire is the season 1 episode. It's written by Chris Carter. It begins with this rich person in, I believe, southwestern England. He's loaded. He is going on a trip, and he's walking down his garden path in a way that just cracks me up every time. Of course, it's unintentional. I don't think Chris Carter could ever write anything that's just intentionally funny or clever. But he's swinging his cane. He's strutting. A podcast, I think it was the Sex Files podcast, said it's like he's walking down a runway. He's saying hello to his servants who secretly hate him. The people who suffer in this episode are rich people, and I can't feel much empathy for them. It's just because very rich people tend to be the fucking worst. And growing up as a poor kid, I can say that on a very personal level. Anyway, he gets to his car and he turns to wave to his wife. And he said goodbye to her 2 seconds ago. It's like, that's actually pretty cute. That's a pretty cute moment. And he's like, goodbye, darling. And she's like, goodbye. I'm like, she's like, when can I expect you back? And he's like, oh, before supper. This episode is going to have me doing some pretty bad British accents. So just bear with me. And to all my British listeners, my sincerest apologies. So, don't tell me you haven't done an American accent, British listeners, okay? So, there's just ladybugs all over the place today. Just crawling all over me. The little dickens. So, I love ladybugs. My daughter loves them too. So, that's pretty cute. I'm like, couldn't you have told her that when you were talking to her 2 minutes ago? Why do you have to yell it across the yard? There's one person, a gardener named Cecil, and this rich man just burst into flames. And you get this wonderful shot of his servants. And I know, like, seeing someone burst into flames is probably like a super like fucked up thing to watch. Do you want to see my Halloween cat? Why don't you say hey? You want to say hey? This is my Halloween bestie. Hello. So I'm sure like watching someone burst into flames is a pretty horrifying thing. But it's funny to watch the servants like just kind of half-heartedly try to put the flames out. There's one guy in the back. He's like very slowly taking his coat off. I think that's the only thing they do. They watch him burn for a good 3 minutes before they even react. So, and Cecil's standing there in the meme from Parks and Recreations. The Don't Be Suspicious, the Ralphio siblings. He's just standing there watching them burn. I'm sure he's not connected in any way to this crime. So you get the credits, and you see Mulder and Scully coming out of court. My cat's tail is like in the video. Could you move your butt? Like, you can sit down. Don't claw me. So Mulder and Scully are coming out of court into the parking garage. And my cat got me dirty. You little D. So, and Mulder Scully's like, oh, if I forget how exhausting court days were. And Mulder just pretty much admits, what a shitty FBI agent he is. I don't know why he admitted this. I mean, it's a well-known fact. He says, like, the problem with pursuing, like, ghosties and beasties is, like, you can't press charges. That's funny. But what makes it even more hilarious, and I'm pretty sure Chris Carter did not intend this, I would say 95% of the time in the X-Files, it's the thing causing the spooky shit is not a supernatural thing. it's something that can be explained by logic. So that would mean these people could be prosecuted. I'm thinking about Eugene Victor Toombs. Um, like, so what Mulder is admitting here is that he's just a shitty investigator. Like, if he was indeed pursuing ghosties and beasties for 100% of the time, which he's absolutely not, I could see that as a defense. What he's saying is just, oh, these people have logic and reason, which we usually figure out. Well, Scully usually figures out because she does all the fucking work in these episodes. But Mulder's just saying, I'm too incompetent, like, to do anything about it. So it's funny. It's a joke that's like, haha, on the surface, and then you think about it and you're like, oh man, that's fucked up. So we'll review the episode Toombs. Mulder is 100% guilty of Eugene Victor Toombs going on his second killing spree. We'll talk about that episode. It's near and dear to my heart. So they get in the car, and okay, Chris Carter, you have 2 points now on the board. This is a pretty cool scene. Mulder finds a cassette tape, and the car's unlocked, and he's like, I locked it, and he puts the cassette tape in. First of all, if your car is unlocked and you've locked it, and you get in the car and find a cassette tape, wouldn't that be like, maybe don't touch that? That could be evidence to a crime. Maybe someone's plotting to kill you or kidnap you. You don't know. But Mulder, he's just professed to being an excellent FBI agent. He puts it in the cassette player, and voice comes on, and it's very James Bond, where it's like, or Mission Impossible. If you kids, you little babies, if you've ever watched you're probably thinking about the Tom Cruise movies, but it was a pretty cool TV shows, and the protagonist would get these tapes that would be like, you have so many minutes, like, or this tape will self-destruct, and it's very reminiscent of that. I'll give Chris Carter that. That's pretty cool. So then the tape is being narrated by this English woman, and she is telling them about this gruesome murder where this guy was exploded in his car, and she's saying, like, the thing, like, it was activated by this person, like, doing what you did, like, pulling the door handle, putting the cassette tape in, and then this bitch opens the car door and scares them half to death. And we get to meet Phoebe goddamn Green, which we will discuss at length in a moment. So Phoebe, who narrated this tape and planted it, pulls Mulder out of the car and gives him a big fat smooch. Scully's standing there, and we'll talk about Scully's reactions to Phoebe being highly inappropriate with Mulder. Very inappropriate. Scully looks fucking pissed, but not for the reasons you would think or the show would lead you to believe. So, or that the show wants you to believe. So, Phoebe turns to Mulder very cattily and says she hates me because this episode's written by Chris Carter, and Chris Carter cannot write women. Chris Carter can't write, period, but he especially cannot write women. So, and he shouldn't be allowed to, okay, because it's harmful. They go back to Mulder's office, Mulder and Scully's office. I'm no longer calling it Mulder's office because it's Scully's office too. And she's explaining to Mulder, like, this is a, quote, 3-pipe problem, which is a reference to Sherlock Holmes. And Sherlock Holmes plays an interesting role in this episode, but if you've never seen it, not the role you're expecting. We'll talk about that in a minute too. She's telling Mulder about this case, about how these rich fucks are being lit on fire. I don't feel sorry for them. That's the first thought I had when I watched this when I was a little kid. I was about 10 years old, I was watching this and I'm like, I don't feel sorry for those rich people being lit on fire. I'm sorry. I know I sound like a bastard, but I don't. So like, I was like, rich people burn us every day. Why should I feel sorry for them when they get burnt? So, hello. I know you're my Halloween baby. I love you so much. Ooh, got a wrist cramp. Bear with me. So, Phoebe's telling him about this 3-pipe problem, and there's these rich fuckers being lit on fire, and she can't figure it out. And she's come to Mulder for help, which I think it's pretty obvious at this point. It's not just for that. She's also come here for Mulder. We will talk about how problematic Phoebe is, because she's fucking problematic. So, she's like, we can't figure this out. Like, these people are just bursting into flames. You know, how are they? And the whole time, like, Scully's standing in the back of the office. Phoebe never acknowledges her. And, like, it's fucked. It's really fucked. But Phoebe's not completely to blame for this. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, they go to see, I believe his name is Agent Beatty. And okay, there's these side characters in the FBI, in the X-Files, like Agent Pendrell and Agent Henderson, who are both just fantastic characters. And the fandom is always talking about them like they want to know more about them. Agent Beatty is the one I want to know about. This guy, right? So, please bear with me. So, Agent Beatty, I was watching this with my spouse last night, and my spouse said, I can't decide if Agent Beatty wants to fuck Phoebe, fuck Scully, or just fuck Fire, or all three of them at the same time. Probably drawing Mulder into that as well. Agent Beatty has a hard-on for Fire, which, I mean, what is the saying? If you do what you love, you'll never work a day. And that's what Agent Beatty's doing. This man is like writing love poetry to Fire, which is concerning on several levels. Anyway, he starts coming on to Phoebe. It's very inappropriate. And as Mulder listens to him talk to Phoebe about spontaneous human combustion, Mulder's getting pretty turned on too. Scully is in the back listening, looking like I did at a high school party when all of my classmates are making out. And I'm over here with my little demisexual ass like, okay, do you guys want some more chips or something? I don't know what to do in this situation. Poor Scully, she would not do well in like orgy situations, which is what's about to happen here, I believe. So, I will give Phoebe one thing. She's wearing a pretty cool top in this scene. It's like an embroidered silk top. It's pretty cool. Then, like, Agent Beatty's talking to Mulder. He's like, you got yourself quite a case here. Wish I was in your shoes, which is highly inappropriate to say in your workplace. Phoebe smirks at him. Everyone's inappropriate in this scene, except for Scully, who's like standing in the back like, oh my God, I want out of this situation. It's creepy. So I can't decide if Agent Beatty is referring to Mulder working with Phoebe or Mulder working with Fire, because we know both gets him hard. So there you go. Agent Beatty. We never see him outside of this episode, but he's absolutely the most intriguing character in this episode. So, they, go back to Mulder's office, and Phoebe's like, can I count on you? And she looks at him for this very long and inappropriate amount of time. She leaves, and Scully's like, hey, what's up with this bitch, right? So Mulder explains to her that he knew her at Oxford. He got in, quote, way over his head. Scully does this very cute thing, which is in a lot of X-Files memes, where she tells him, Mulder, you're just unfolding like a flower, which is pretty cute. And then he's like, I was just extending my courtesy towards her. And Scully, who never misses an opportunity to make a penis joke, says, oh, that's what you were extending. Please excuse me. I hope my voice doesn't give out. I'm still, like, recovering from this cold. So, of course, Dana, always gonna make a dick joke, Scully. But then Mulder says to her, like, this is fucked, because we learn Mulder's afraid of fire, which is something the fandom never forgets, but something the show forgets immediately. Continuity. This is what the show says. Continuity. We don't know her. I'm thinking about the scene in Anasazi where the smoking man sets fire to this, excuse me, train car that Mulder is inside, which would have been an excellent opportunity for the show to revisit his fear of fire. And it never does. Again, it's just they drop it like a hot rock, like his fear of insects, or his hatred of insects, I guess. There is a great X-Files novel called Ground Zero. It's great. It does more character development for Scully than the show ever did. It's wonderful. You need to check it out. I have a copy, so hit me up and I'll read it to you. I'll make an audiobook of it, which would be actually pretty fun. And it does talk about Mulder's fear of fire, which is pretty good. Like, again, like the fandom never forgets this plot point, but the X-Files sure does. So Mulder explains to Scully, when he was a little boy, he had to sleep in the rubble of like this burned house, and he's been afraid of fire ever since. Scully's come back with this case, which is centering around fire, and considering their romantic background and their personal relationship, that is a fucked up thing to do. Let's talk about Phoebe and how problematic she is. Phoebe is emotionally abusive to Mulder. I would say she's toxic. My cat has just seen a lizard and she's about to destroy it. She is so cute. I wish you could see her. Lizards must be like Snickers bars for cats. They love them. So, Phoebe comes, she hasn't seen Mulder in 12 years. And she comes to him with this case to have emotional control over him, which is just beyond fucked. She very much reminds me of Daniel in the episode All Things, the way he's he is stalkery towards Scully, who he had this relationship with in the past, which is just beyond fucked. Now, Phoebe is a woman written by men, specifically one man that should never write women, Chris Carter. So she's not completely to blame for this. But that does not make what she does to Mulder any less fucked, okay? Like, this is emotional abuse, what she's doing to Mulder. It's manipulation, and it's fucked, okay? So Mulder tells Scully, she's like, look, you need my help on this. Like, this is not something you need to handle alone. But oh boy, toxic masculinity. And Mulder's like, well, a man's got to face up to his demons sometime. Mulder, we have a whole episode of that in season 4 of you facing up to your demons. And several people end up dead in it. I'm just going to say that. We'll review the episode Demons in a minute. It's fucked up. So we all know what happens when Mulder tries to face his demons. People die, okay? So Mulder leaves in a huff. I mean, mad at Scully for some reason. She's just asked a question. And you think Dana Scully sits and folds her hands? Of course not. Hey, time to play the game. Does Scully end up doing all the fucking work in this episode? If you said yes, you've guessed correctly. Congratulations. Have a piece of Halloween candy. Have one of those mini Snickers. That is my favorite candy ever, is the little mini Snickers bars. Followed by candy corn. I love candy corn. Candy corn's just great. There's so much candy corn hate out there. I don't understand it. It's wonderful. It's gluten-free. It kids with peanut allergies can enjoy it, which is what I love. So candy corn, it's great. Don't hate on people who love it. Just leave us alone. Let us have our candy corn. I love candy corn. I was doing so good on my diet until my child brought home candy corn. So, Scully, of course, goes off and starts profiling this person, Cecil, who is killing these people. And guess what? Her profile is spot on. Mulder gets all the praise for being a brilliant profiler. When he does little to no profiling, Scully gets no praise for being a brilliant profiler, and she does most of the profiling in the series. I would say the majority of the profiling. 99.9% of the profiling. Mulder and Phoebe go to see this woman who was in a bar fire. And it's strange. I watched this episode right after watching this YouTube account, Nexpo. If you've never watched Nexpo, watch them. They're not a sponsor, but they're brilliant. And they were talking about the fire back in 2006, I believe, of the rock band Great White. I think it's the 10th worst nightclub fire in human history. And I was watching the fire. Yeah, I was watching the fire, the footage of that, and it's terrifying. Yeah, fire's terrifying, guys. Don't fuck around with it, okay? It's terrifying. Anyway, this bar fire in this episode was started by Cecil, who's the protagonist, and he meets this woman. He is in Cape Cod, and he has killed the caretaker of this home, which is where Lord Malcolm and his family are staying. And he's one of the British lords that Cecil threatened. Because Cecil loves the wives of these rich men because they are unattainable. Cecil is an incel. That's what he is. Cecil is a pretty good villain. Okay, I'll give the episode that. Ooh, I gotta rest my wrist. It's hurting. I think if this episode had leaned into... if it had focused on Cecil and pitting his wits against Mulder and Scully instead of focusing on what it does, which is terrible, and we'll discuss in a minute, this would have been an episode like Pusher. Just a incel person who just wants to use this paranormal power they have to hurt people just because they're a despicable person. Excuse me. So, like, that's a terrifying thing. Cecil reminds me very much of Daryl Patton Oswalt in Daryl Patton Oswalt, not Patton Oswalt, the comedian. No, not him. Daryl Patton Oswalt in the episode DPO. This incel of a guy who is being rejected by women, and he just wants to hurt as many people as he can. see almost every mass shooter in recent history. They just are being rejected, or they are assuming they're being rejected by women, and they're just going to go out and kill as many people as they can, hurt as many people as they can, because they just have a little bit of power, and they're going to use it to hurt people that have nothing to do with them. Okay. Oh boy. Toxic masculinity. It's a bitch. So, Cecil has killed the caretaker of this home so he can stalk Lord Malcolm and his family and his wife and his 2 children, and it is fucked up. So he goes off to this bar. He's getting cough syrup, quote, cough syrup for the Malcolm's driver. And it's, spoiler alert, it's not cough syrup, it's poison. And he goes to this bar, he meets this woman, and he does the trick where he wants to light her cigarette with his finger. Because Cecil can start fires with his mind, we're led to believe. But he has to have an accelerant on these people or locations. In this case, the bar is filled with alcohol. I'm assuming that's what makes it burn to the ground, which is just so scary. And that's where we get this iconic shot of his arm on fire, which is what I put up in my room when I was 13 years old. This woman is in the hospital. Mulder and Phoebe are questioning her, and she's like, look, I had a few drinks, but I do remember the guy had an English accent. And Mulder's like, hey, could you like give us a composite sketch of this guy? The X-Files has this trope where they send someone out to get a composite sketch of the perpetrator, and it only comes to them at very dramatic times in the plot, which is a trope that is super weird. Anyway, this is what happens in this case. At the end, they all gasp and they're like, oh, it's the caretaker. Like, it always comes at this very plot relevant point in the episode. If you keep, my cat's making up biscuits on me. She's kneading. You need me. You need me. I need you too. She's such a big baby. I love her. Anyway, so Cecil is just, when he's not burning bars to the ground in Cape Cod, he is being a huge fucking creep to this family. You see the 2 little ragamuffin boys come up to him. They're playing in the yard, and he's trying to get them to smoke cigarettes. This scene cracks me up because it's every not anti-smoking PSA in the 1990s. It has the bad lighting, the smoker, the ad makes them look like the scariest person in the world. Like, I grew up thinking like these absolute perverts were just gonna come up to me on the street and get me to smoke cigarettes. I didn't know it would be like, I don't know, like my classmate. Like, the PSAs never showed you this. Like, it could be your classmate or your cousin offering cigarettes to you. It always made it seem like it was a fucking serial killer that would do it. So this creep tries to get these kids to smoke cigarettes, and they run away. Good job, kids. You did the right thing. They probably watched the PSAs in the 90s. They go up to their mom, who looks a lot like Natasha Richardson from The Parent Trap, but it's not Natasha Richardson. Anyway, I think every woman in the 90s had this haircut she has. It's pretty awesome. It's a very good haircut. Good job, Lord Malcolm's wife. You have an awesome haircut. So, she's like, hey, our driver's ill because you're giving him poison cough syrup. Which is absolutely what Cecil has done to the driver. The poor driver. A justice for I don't even know his name. Justice for the Malcolm's driver. He didn't deserve any of this. So Cecil does like, oh, I'll drive you into town as a favor, trying to act like a nice guy. Fuck you, Cecil. Again, very much like Darren Patton Oswald in DPO, using his powers to create accidents, and then he swoops in and is the quote hero when he absolutely caused this. Again, another trope the X-Files loves to use for some reason. It's not as weird as the composite sketch coming in at a plot relevant point in the story, which I think is just hilarious. So, Cecil drives them to Cape Cod. There's going to be he drives them into Boston, sorry. There's going to be a huge party, and Phoebe and Mulder are going to lay a trap. This is funny. So, of course, it's unintentionally funny. 2 reasons I like to watch this episode. Many people call it the trash fire of X-Files episodes, which I think is just hilarious. Play on words. And accurate. And also because the villain is just good. Like I said, if they had leaned into making this about Cecil and pitting Mulder and Scully and Phoebe against him, that would have been fucking rad. Like, that would have been amazing. And they hadn't have added the problematic shit, which we will talk about at length in just a minute. So Mulder and Scully laid this quote trap. I'm putting this in the biggest of quotations. It absolutely does not turn out to be a trap because they're not even trying. Phoebe is manipulating Mulder to fuck her. Sweet Jesus Lord. We're about to get into it. She says, let's lay a trap for him. And Mulder's like, that's a great idea. They don't lay a trap for him. They could catch him here, but they don't even try. Meanwhile, Scully's over here profiling this killer and doing all the fucking work to find him. She isn't even assigned to this case. Again, like, that's the summary of the X-Files. Scully does all the fucking work. So, they go to this party. Mulder's dressed in a tuxedo, and let's rate Mulder in this episode on how terrible he is. He's a 3. Because I feel a lot of empathy for him in this episode. We'll talk about why in a minute. He's being emotionally abused, okay? He's being emotionally blackmailed, pretty much, by Phoebe. So he's in this tuxedo, and he looks pretty cute. Okay, I'll give you that skinny season 1 David Duchovny. You're pretty cute in a tuxedo, buddy. My stomach is growling. I have a chicken salad sandwich in the fridge that's just absolutely calling my name right now. I ate breakfast. It was a long time ago. So, they're laying the trap. Of course, Scully comes out there. You know what? I'll reference Fox Mulder is a Maniac podcast in just a minute because I had a great quote about this episode, which I definitely want to talk about. So she comes out there and she sees Phoebe kiss Mulder. We need to talk about jealous Scully and why the jealous Scully trope ain't hot. That's the title of this vlog. Jealous Scully ain't hot. So, in the fandom, jealous Scully is fetishized. And I'm not here to kink shame. If something starts your engine, more power to you. But I think the trope of jealous Scully comes from a harmful place. Okay, so I don't think jealous Scully is hot. I've never found her hot. And this is the reason why. The trope of jealous Scully comes from male writers, whether intentionally or unintentionally, seeing that Mulder is the center of all female attention. They believe that the female characters only exist for Mulder. this is something that's seen throughout the series. In the case of Scully's the most obvious case. She doesn't have a personal life. She doesn't have a sex life. She doesn't have hobbies. She doesn't have relationships. Eventually, they're all destroyed unless they are connected to Mulder. This episode's 40 minutes. It's going to be a long one. Get ready for another Paper Hearts vlog. I have a lot to say here. This is the way they view Scully and any other woman who is in any way romantically interested in Mulder, as like they're going to fight over Mulder because they believe this is the only thing women exist for, is in service and in attention to men. I believe this is done unintentionally, but it's still harmful. This is because Scully is written by men, and her jealousy is not handled in the way it would be handled if a woman, or if women at least had some kind of influence in the writer's room, which of course they didn't. So men are like, oh, of course, if there's Mulder's anywhere in the vicinity, Scully's going to be fighting with the woman over him because the man is all that matters. This is all that women focus on. This is what they are saying, whether subconsciously or not. This is because from the time little boys are born, they are taught in our society that women serve them. Women exist for them. They are entitled to them. Why wouldn't a woman be jealous for my attention? Why wouldn't women react this way? This is where the trope of jealous Scully comes from. This very toxically masculine place. Now, I will go a step further. In the podcast Fox Mulder is a Maniac, which you absolutely need to listen to, it is the gold standard of X-Files podcasts, them and the Sex Files podcast. They say that Scully is not jealous of Mulder in this episode. She is concerned because she knows Mulder seeing his ex is going to be a, quote, whole damn thing. And it's going to jeopardize this mission. I believe that to a point. I believe that Scully gets jealous, but she does it because Mulder makes her uncomfortable. Or the situation makes her uncomfortable and insecure. And Mulder either creates this environment or he enables it. Okay, I'm thinking of the episode War of the Copperphages, which I've covered. And I should have discussed this in the episode, but I didn't. In War of the Copperphages, Scully's back and forth with Mulder on the phone. Mulder meets this entomologist named Bambi Berenbaum, and he's obviously attracted to her. But when people see this, a Detective White in Shizzy is another example. The biggest example is Diana Fowley from late season 5 to into season 7 as like, quote, competition for Mulder. When the large majority of the fandom sees this, they say, oh, jealous Scully, ooh la la. Like, she's competing with this woman for Mulder's affections. It's so sexy. It's not sexy. I don't find this sexy because it's coming from a very bad place. In these instances, Mulder is either excluding Scully from the case, or he's discrediting her, or he's leaving her in the lurch. In the case of War of the Copperphages, he's hanging up on her. She doesn't know if he's safe or not. This is what is making Scully uncomfortable and insecure and afraid. She's pissed. Like, Mulder and Phoebe completely exclude her from this case. In her office. Okay, this is her office. She is assigned to the X-Files. Yeah, she's gonna be fucking pissed because, like, this is what she's supposed to be investigating. It's the same way in the end with Diana Fowley. Like, this woman blows in from nowhere. She suddenly feels entitled to the X-Files. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like, but, and like, Scully's going to be pissed. She's the one working on the X-Files. Do you think for a minute, for one hot minute, Mulder would have gotten as far on the X-Files as he did without Scully? No. He would have been done before he began without Scully. So yeah, like, Scully sees these situations and she's uncomfortable and insecure and angry and pissed because she's being excluded from them. These people are coming in feeling entitled to her work, treating her in a very inappropriate and unprofessional manner. I believe that is what is primarily pissing her off. But when the fandom looks at it, they're like, ooh la la, Scully's jealous. And the writers are pushing this agenda because they view women in this way. They see a woman, no matter who they are, as like, of course they're going to compete over a man, because this is what they say. They're like, women are like this. Women exist only for the benefit of a man. So I don't find jealous Scully sexy because it comes from a very toxic place in the patriarchy, whether intentional or not. I've explained that point. So Scully sees this, and her reaction is very sad. Now, at this point, I believe Scully had a crush on Mulder. And seeing this other woman kissing him really bothers her. It really makes her uncomfortable. But she's trying to handle it in a way where she's being mature and professional. This is something the jealous Scully stans usually never bring up. It's in the end where she sees Mulder and Diana Valley holding hands like fucking 7th graders. And she goes in her car and she's like, you see her struggling with this internally. She's like, I'm a professional and lives are at stake here. I don't have room for these personal feelings for this man. And you see it here. And again, I think that's Gillian's acting. She's bringing that to the table. I don't think a man could have had even that. Like a woman reacting in that manner. Like, Scully's trying to handle this on a professional level. And the writers are looking at her and being like, oh, of course the women are going to compete over the man. Why wouldn't they? They're women. These men should not be allowed to write women. Like, Chris Carter especially should not be allowed to write women. It's toxic and harmful, and it shouldn't be allowed. So anyway, they set the, quote, trap. Mulder and Phoebe are literally off fucking. And Scully sees Cecil watching her in a very creepy way. She's visibly uncomfortable. She turns back and she's gone, and she sees the lights on the elevator going off for a fire on the 14th floor. And Scully, who is an intuitive baby and solves every case on intuition alone, says there's a fire on the 14th floor, catching Mulder and Phoebe mid-smooch. And she runs off to do something. Now, this is a problem. So, Phoebe and Scully know that Mulder has a fear of fire, and it really fucks him up. They are both trained agents. I know Phoebe's not called an agent. I don't know the terminology, but she is professionally trained in these situations. Scully and Phoebe should have been the one handling the fire emergencies in this episode. Like, okay, in this episode, they should have been like, okay, Mulder, we know you have a problem with this. You shouldn't be racing towards these flames. You should be like hanging back, taking care of the mother and the father in this situation and letting us deal with this because we don't have this crippling anxiety. But Mulder is pushing ahead with this to, quote, face his fear. It's all a thing based on pride for him, and it's putting these people in danger. Like, okay, Mulder's going upstairs to help these children in the fire, and he's wasting valuable time. He does this again at the house in Cape Cod at the inn, where the children are trapped in the burning upstairs. While he's having this anxiety attack, it's wasting valuable time. Scully even tells him when the fire starts at the home in Cape Cod, she's like, you need to hang back, Mulder. I need to handle this. Or Phoebe needs to handle this. And Mulder's like, no, gotta face my fears. Gotta fight through it. Love that toxic masculinity, right? And it's putting these children in danger. Like, that's a terrible thing to do, Mulder. And you are a grown-ass man. And again, like in the case of Paper Hearts, were people enabling Mulder? Yes. But he's a grown-ass man. At the end of the day, he should have seen this as being harmful. So, okay, look, I know I'm talking loud, but you don't have to claw me, okay? So, I don't want this video to be an hour. So, Cecil saves the kids from the upstairs room at the party in Boston. And then they get them back to the home in Cape Cod, and Cecil's there. Again, the composite sketch from the woman in the bar comes to them at the home in Cape Cod just in time. And they say, oh my God, it's the caretaker. Phoebe comes in and says, the Malcolms are like, what the fuck? Like, this guy has been driving us for 10 years. It can't be this guy. And Phoebe never, like, again, the Fox Mulder is a Maniac podcast pointed this out. She never says, like, well, couldn't this guy just be faking a British accent? They go upstairs. They find the driver dead from the cough medicine, which Cecil poisoned with fuel accelerant and then burned him to death, which is a terrible way to die. I just want to say that. He had a long and painful death. And then they get the composite sketch, like, right at the home in Cape Cod, and they're like, oh, it's the caretaker. Like, that fucking trope. So, Cecil, again, like, Scully sees him in the hotel in Boston where they're having the party, and she immediately makes that connection intuitively, which I think is just, like, Mulder gets all the praise for being the most intuitive person, and I don't see where this is coming from. Like, Dana Scully, goddamn, her intuition. So, Cecil is brooding upstairs, wearing his Machiavellian, twirling his Machiavellian mustache, and he starts a fire. And I gotta say, the practical effects in this episode are fucking awesome. Goddamn, the special effects department. This was made in 1993, and there weren't this many CGI effects. This was all practical, and it's fucking cool. The guy snaps his finger. The whole place is set on fire. It's fucking awesome. Again, Mulder trying to get to the kids, having a panic attack. He's losing valuable time, and it's terrifying. And again, if he had just put his pride aside for 2 minutes and let Scully handle this, hey, stop biting me. What's with you, you mean little girl? So, my cat's being a turd, as usual. So, yeah, if he would have let Phoebe and Scully handle this, they could have got the kids out, right? So Cecil goes downstairs. I guess he's just going to let these kids burn. These poor kids, Jimmy and Michael, the Malcolms' children, they have narrowly escaped 2 arsons in one night. These kids are going to be traumatized forever, like poor little Caitlin in Paper Hearts. I know, I'm talking too loud. You're done with my bullshit. That's what my cat says. So, Scully is waiting in the staircase. She's got her gun trained on Cecil. He's got his smug little face on. He's like, you're not going to shoot me because you're afraid the sparkle ignite this house. And then Phoebe swoops in and douses him with fuel accelerant. And you know what? This is what this episode could have been, okay? It could have been 2 badass vixens, Phoebe and Scully, working together to get this incel motherfucker. But you know what it had to be? It had to be Chris Carter projecting onto women and, like, saying, like, this is all women exist for, is like to be jealous and fight over men. It could have been this. This is fantastic. Two women working together to take on this motherfucker. But of course, because Chris Carter wrote this, we can't have nice things ever. So Cecil goes outside and burns himself to death. And look, Cecil's a motherfucker, all right, but this is pretty fucking metal. And everyone just kind of stares at him. No one gets the kids away. Let's just traumatize these poor little boys some more. Why not? Yeah, why the fuck not? Jimmy and Michael, goddamn. They deserved better. Like, they're going to be in therapy for a very long time, possibly for the rest of their lives. So then you see the closing sequence. Phoebe leaves a tape for Mulder, and Scully comes in. She fakes a British accent, and it's pretty sexy. She's like, taking me to lunch, and Mulder jumps, and it would be funny if it wasn't so fucked up. Phoebe emotionally abused him. Okay. She's an abuser. She's like, hey, are you going to play that tape? And he's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, Mulder, why couldn't you do this with all your problematic behavior? Like, why, and I'm putting this completely on the writers, why couldn't Mulder's problematic behaviors be addressed? You know, why couldn't it? I mean, what's stopping you? Like, Mulder's an addict, okay? And what he loves is the chase. And like all addicts, he will put everything in his life, he will put that addiction before everything in his life. And that includes Scully. Mulder has an addiction to the chase. Whether that's chasing Phoebe, whether that's chasing Diana Fowley, whether that's chasing the truth, Mulder has an addiction, and it's never addressed on the show. I compare Mulder to Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Zuko is an addict too. He's addicted to the chase, his quest for validation, which of course he never receives. But Avatar: The Last Airbender actually had a good showrunner, and his problematic behavior is addressed and becomes a central part of his character arc, where he sees that his chase is not just harming him, but the people around him, and it's toxic and dangerous, and he should stop. Mulder's addiction to the truth and to chasing things which he can never attain is never addressed by the show. And that's what makes Mulder a poor character. He does not have character development. But you see how easily it could have been addressed. You see it addressed in the smallest sense in this case. And the person addressing it is Chris Carter. Chris Carter, the showrunner of The X-Files, gave the slightest hint of addressing Mulder's problematic behavior, and he just never does. So we'll end on that very depressing note. Have a happy autumn. Enjoy it. Get out, enjoy the weather. Eat some pumpkin pie. If you don't like pumpkin, drink some hot cocoa. If you don't like hot drinks, enjoy the thing that makes you happy. Enjoy nice things this autumn. I hope you have a wonderful day. The weather's beautiful here, and I'm going to go trick-or-treating with my kid. I hope you have a great autumn. Mwah.